Welcome everyone to the Flux Dev Meeting, August 8th, 2024. Let's just get the agenda together. Anyone has anything to discuss or welcome to go first?
Yeah, for some reason I'm having trouble loading it. My computer's just being slow. If anybody's, oh, there you go. Hey, Sunny, how's it going?
Good. I had a few things to discuss, but I think Sule or Stefan or others are not here. But we can still discuss.
I am.
It's related to you are here,
Matthias is here.
but he already knows about what we are about to discuss. I want to discuss with other people. Stefan is here. Okay. So, should we start with the first topic or directly go to what I wanted to discuss? This topic is related to Terraform provider. I have not looked into what's going on there.
I see there's
Sorry.
from Steve.
Yeah, is that what you mean? I won't be here, but
Yeah.
he's closing a PR, I guess. I guess he wants you to leave yes or no, or any.
I don't know about this. To read. Or we can come back to it later. Should we discuss the next thing?
Sounds good.
So this is related to the STS support we are adding in Bucket API. So STS requires an STS endpoint, and we have added support for proxying the STS connections. But what if the STS endpoint is expects a TLS certificate? How do we configure that for just the STS endpoint? Any opinions? We can add a new field for TLS certificate reference, or we can use just a secret ref in STS for this.
Sorry for being
We
late.
can ask people to mount the certificate on the pod.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, so my initial, I also commented on that pull request. My assumption would be is that if you use a custom CA, I expect you to have both certificates for the STS endpoint and for the S3 endpoint to be signed with the same CA, right? If you are in a And I mean, this case is only for an enterprise on-prem thing, right? And I'm guessing you have something like AWS Outpost, or I'm not sure how could you have an AWS S3 endpoint with a custom CA? What was the use?
No, not
action in
AWS,
this case?
not AWS.
It could be a min.io, right?
Your STS server before separate from min.io can have its own certificate handled by a separate server, and your min.io server can have its own separate certificate.
Yeah, but the CA can be the same, right? If you are in an enterprise, whatever, you have your own CA and everything, even if of course, there are different certs, but the authority is your enterprise authority.
But if you're some kind of one-man shop trying to do this, then you probably will have two separate self-signed certificates. with different host names.
Hmm.
But how can you have if you are
Just
let
let's
me ask you
encrypt.
again. How can you use AWS STS on-prem?
No, this is for generic Minio, not for
Yes,
AWS.
but it's type AWS for the STS endpoint, right? This is what we are talking about.
Talking about general for the API.
No, that pull request is not about general. It's about
No.
provider AWS.
It's not exactly related to that pull request. About the general STS API.
Yeah,
There will
I
be
mean, I
another pull
didn't,
request after this.
yeah, I didn't open the LDAP pull request yet, but I have the change ready in my computer. I just didn't push it anywhere yet. And like in that pull request, we can like it's exactly the case we're talking, right? Like we can have like we can talk to the LDAP STS endpoint and use a proxy for it. My tests actually test that, like I'm talking to this LDAP STS endpoint, which is mocked in the tests with and without a proxy. And the same is true for using or not using a custom TLS configuration.
Yes, so my opinion is for the current pull request, which is about
it's not required.
AWS, we shouldn't be dealing with the cert, right? We shouldn't
Yeah, I guess for
think
that per
about,
request, it's not relevant. True.
right? For Minio with LDAP, that's a different story, right? Maybe you run, but are you running an LDAP as a home user and you don't have a custom CA? You generate a CA for every single server?
I don't think it's CA related, it's the host related. CA could be let's encrypt, fine. But the certificate can be specific to different hosts.
Yes, but in the cert, in the secret, right? You specify there. We are not talking about MTLS here, right? We are talking about you generate self-signed certificates, and in the secret that you point Flux to is your custom CA, right? Do we support MTLS for S3, a client cert?
Not S3. Minio I have not looked into what they do with it.
Okay, I'm really confused. So, what do you place in the secret when you have a self-signed certificate for Minio? You place the CA only, right?
Right.
Actually, I mean, for the generic provider, we can use either like we can use MTLS, and we can also use like just a custom CA as well. We can, like any combination of those, I guess.
Yeah, let's see if Minio supports MTLS.
Yes, the test that.
Okay, so we have a test with Minio and MTLS.
Mhm.
Okay.
And custom CA, like which are like I think they're
Yeah.
independent, right?
Yeah, custom CA is one thing. Mutual TLS when you need the client cert is different, right? So when you
Yeah.
need a client cert, I can understand why the STS endpoint will have a different client cert than the Minio server, even if
The
the
thing
CA
is,
is the same.
the thing that Sunny pointed out is that in like in the tests, we have those tests that's like test PKI infrastructure, right? But in the code, like the code that we use for like building the TLS config, uses the host of the bucket endpoint. So the TLS config in the
Oh,
controller is built from the endpoint of the bucket endpoint, right? And not the STS endpoint. That's the
oh
problem.
yeah, that will never work. Okay, now I understand. So it's not about the search, it's around passing the transport, the transport configuration.
Yeah, like the TLS configuration that goes in the transport configuration. Like this TLS configuration is built with the bucket endpoint.
Mm.
I just don't know exactly where it's placed. Let me just check it again.
Yeah, okay. So for LDAP, we need the TLS secret ref, right, to solve this. And we load the CA, and if it specified the client cert for the STS endpoint, and we build the TLS network transport based on that secret.
We already have like, I mean, I don't know if this is like a poor design choice or something, but we already require a secret for the LDAP provider of STS for generic bucket provider, right? So we could just place the keys, like the keys are right now username and password. We could have the other
No,
three keys there as well, but
no, no,
I
no.
don't know.
That's we decided to not do that
Cool,
in our
cool.
API design. That's why we introduced
Okay.
different keys, and the explanation for that is due to security enforcements. Like if you want to enforce a particular TLS restriction, you want to be able to say tenants are not allowed to specify custom CAs and custom certs. And you can't do that if you hide the settings in the secret. You need a key in the API so you can block it with Kyverno, OPA, whatever. You say, oh, this tenant is using a custom cert, I'm going to block this. You are not allowed to use custom self-signed certificates. You need to trust whatever the enterprise has set up, right? And this is the case where the cluster admin sets the trust CA by mounting certificates inside the container with a volume, right? And then it creates this Kyverno or OPA or whatever webhook, which prevents tenants from specifying client certs, TLS configurations in their sources. So if we want to support for LDAP self-signed certs, we need a different key and a different secret. Of
Like
course, people
certs.
can have the same secret and point from both things to the same file, to the same Kubernetes secret, right? There's nothing preventing you from having.
Since there's no conflict on the keys used inside the secret, right?
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. But it would be something like STS dot. We have STS dot secret ref. That would be just like STS dot search secret ref, just like in the bucket, right?
Yeah.
So is it decided? Will we add another field?
Yeah.
Okay. Similar
One
to the
question. So I just looked at the code here that builds the TLS configuration using the URL. So basically the host name of the endpoint is assigned to this field called server name in the TLS config object. What is that? Like, is that this is the only host that this TLS configuration will accept as valid. It's like a Go thing, like the Go standard library. Server name is used to verify the host name on the returned certificates unless, yeah, that's exactly it. Unless insecure skip verify is given. It is also included in the client's handshake to support virtual hosting unless it is an IP address. Okay, yeah.
It's similar to the subject alternative name you add. We
Mm.
have virtual
Oh,
host.
okay, the
SAN.
SAN from the cert. Okay, cool. So are we shipping this for Bucket GA, the STS cert secret ref? Or not?
Yeah, we can include it in the LDAP thing, right?
Right,
Because
so right.
for the current pull request for AWS, I
We
don't
don't need
think it
it, right?
should be included in that pull request because the scope is talking to AWS. There is no custom search there. Right?
Mhm.
Now I'm looking at something else, like we don't have in the bucket documentation a cert reference. Cert. Did we forget to document it? Sunny?
Just the documentation is missing, right? Is that true?
What?
Just the documentation is missing, right?
Yeah, so in the source code we have the third secret ref, but is missing from the docs. I don't.
Oh, really?
Is
On
it
the
because it
That
was
that's
added recently?
that's probably my mistake. Let me check that.
I think we added it a few
Right,
months ago, I think.
You mean the cert secret ref?
Oh, it wasn't included in 1.3, right? This is recent. No, it's okay. It's
No?
okay. So in the markdown in the repo, it's not on the website because it hasn't been released yet.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
it's in the it's
Yeah, I
there in
was
the
looking at the website. Yeah, sorry.
okay.
No, it is good. It's in the markdown.
In the Git repo, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I propose, so let's try to merge some of these pull requests. So we can merge the AWS STS endpoint. Did you remove the cert mapping there?
It's
I'm
not
talking
cert.
one.
I did remove, yeah. There's just a
Okay.
couple more comments from Sunny, but they're very, very small. We can address them like right now.
Okay, so let's try to merge this week, tomorrow, or later today, the STS one. And we also have the proxy support for OCI
Yeah.
repository API, right?
Yeah, so actually I have like 5 pull requests open in total, and yeah, there's one is this OCI proxy support. There's the STS that we just discussed, and there's also 3 pull requests for
Yeah, I've seen
full
for
proxy
proxy.
support. Yeah, one, but they are like exponentially smaller each one. So GCS one is the largest one, not so big though. And because that one, like we can write some good tests because we have the GCS emulator, right? So we can test that one pretty well. And it's the most complicated one to configure the client to use a proxy. The other ones, like the Azure one is much easier. So yeah, the Azure one is much smaller, and the last one is just an update on like just to say that we support AWS as well, like because it's already implemented through the Min.io code, right? So it's really just a super tiny pull request to update the documentation. Yeah, so those three. In size, they're pretty much just like one PR.
Okay, let me approve the AWS one. Yes, indeed, this is only a docs change.
And by the way, like I plan to merge them in order, like GCS, Azure, and AWS. And in fact, the content that is going to be merged in the AWS one is not the one that is on the PR right now because I'm doing this atomically. So I will
Yeah,
rebase, right?
you need to rebase after you merge
Yeah,
each one, right?
exactly. I will rebase each one, and in the last one, the change will be actually just remove the line and not really update the line as I'm updating right now.
Mhm. What about the OCI proxy? So this
OCI,
one we said cosine, we take it separately, right?
yeah, like for cosine, we will not change will not support for keyless verification, but for the verification using a private key, the code path already supports that. I just have to write tests. And for notation, apparently we do need a small change to pass in the transport for the communication with notation and write tests as well. So
Okay,
um,
so this one
so
is, we have better chance to do the buckets, right?
yeah, I mean I think yeah, I think if I would say yeah, like I mean for bucket, the only thing that I still need to write code for that we decide today is the sts.search secret ref for LDAP. But I think that's like super easy and quick to do, I guess.
Yeah, but that's not in right now. Let's try and
Yeah.
before you open more pull requests, let's try and get all the
Okay.
the 3 for proxies and STS for AWS. Let's try to merge them all first and then do all that.
Okay.
Sunny,
And
can you look over
you mean
them?
the OCI repo as well? Because it's already
No,
open? No?
no.
Okay.
So let's try to do the 3 for proxy and AWS STS one. Let's try to merge them before we do more things.
Cool. Great.
Next topic. Oh, one more thing related to this STS change. We're using the common expression language validation, and we are testing that using Helm test. I think in Helm controller we added similar test, the similar validation, but we don't have a automated test for it. Looked into that, I could not find any. So whenever we add new cell validation, we can easily add an end test to validate it against the API server itself. That's it. Just wanted to share. Make sense or not?
If the goal is not to test the cell in itself, yes, it makes sense.
No, the logic we add in the expression we add.
Yeah, I think we have these kind of tests where we apply something and then we verify. I think around status if it has the -1 default. For this, the end-to-end test would be apply something that shouldn't pass configuration and grep for the result the denial of the apply, right?
You just create and your create will return an error and you check the error content.
Mm. Yeah.
Next topic is about renaming some constants that we have in V1 beta 2 in source controller. So a lot of these provider specific constants like AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud, we have named them such a way that they start with Amazon or Google or Azure. We have started changing the pattern in other packages to have the common part at the beginning to make it easier to type. There is a link where I describe how we can do it if we want to make it easier for the existing users to not change anything. We can keep it backwards compatible, but we can break it because these will move to V1 API from V1 beta 2. If you want to help make it easier, we can keep the old names in a separate variables with the same core value. It's just more variables with the same value. What should we do?
Yeah, I've seen your comment on that issue with creating these aliases. So
should we make it easy?
yeah, I think we can do so. We can add aliases now when we do V1 for bucket. And then when we are going to do V1 for OCI, we can remove them. And we should have comments around the deprecation on them.
You're saying in V1 we'll introduce the old names and later we'll deprecate.
No. So in V1 bucket, we introduce the constants like
the new ones.
The new ones. We introduce the aliases as well. And on the aliases, we add deprecation comments for them.
So that's what I said. You're introducing or you're moving the old names to the V1 package and then deprecate it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And then
so whatever
when we release V1 for OCI repository, we remove them completely. Also for bucket, also for OCI. So we give people, let's say, 6 months to migrate from the aliases that we introduce now to the new names. Basically, we delete the deprecation. We deprecate them now, and then we delete them in 6 months.
So you add an API in V1 and then you just deprecate it, not remove it. Are you saying remove it at that? Removing an API from V1 API?
No, we are not removing APIs. The API is generic AWS, GCP, Azure, right? We are removing the name of the variable, the name of the constant.
That's an exported
which is
constant, which is an
yes,
API.
For consumers, yeah. Kubernetes does it at every minor release. Why wouldn't we? They break signatures, they break everything. Right? I'm just looking at 131, they broke again. They changed signatures of functions again. Yeah. So if they roll like this, why wouldn't we?
Um, okay.
Or let's remove it now. It's in v1 beta 2, right? All these variables.
Hmm.
Because also bucket and OCI is v1 beta 2, both of them.
Hmm.
And we can remove them, rename them now with bucket v1. And that's it. Let's do that. So we don't remove something from a v1. We remove it from
Mhm.
v1 beta 1, right? I think
Mhm.
that's fine. Okay.
So introduce the new names in the old API version,
Yeah.
and don't move the old one to the new one. That sounds better.
Okay. Will you
I mean,
write
also, we're just
can
changing the
leave it on.
names, right? The values are not changing, so that's
yeah, so
super
it
okay.
doesn't affect Flux end users. It affects people that are using Flux packages, are building their own controllers or some integration on top of Flux, right?
And
And to
their build will
Sunny's,
fail, and it's super easy to fix.
yeah.
Or you cannot fail. Okay,
Yeah,
I'll
so
leave
let,
a comment.
okay. But let's do this in a dedicated pull request, Matthew,
Mhm.
right?
So,
So
and
when
this,
we do the
this
renaming, we have a dedicated pull request so people can point to something when they will come back to us and be mad.
this is not just about bucket, right? It's about OCA as well.
Yes.
Okay. I saw you added a bucket label. Oh, you removed. Sorry. Okay. Initially, there was a bucket label.
I removed.
Okay, that's all. Next.
If there is nothing else on the doc, I want to add something to talk next.
You want to go ahead first? I just had a few questions at the end, but
Okay. So I want to discuss a little bit about the GitLab. So we have, there is a pull request open by Victor where it introduces a project path argument to the CLI. Danny, have you looked over
No,
this
I
pull
saw it
request?
exist. I have not checked what it is
Yeah.
doing.
Because it's quite confusing. So this one is not a draft, but he said not ready for merge, needs testing on self-managed instance. And I'm not sure it's up to us to test it. Will he tested it? I'm not sure. So yeah, maybe it is not a huge change. It's just a couple of lines of code, but yeah, he's doing some splits based on a slash. And I think we are already doing this in other parts. Anyway, it's something we should be looking at. And another, I'm just saying something that we should be looking at and not leave it like that for months. Another pull request that I'm currently reviewing and I want some feedback from you guys is this one, 4916. Let me paste it in the chat here. So this one is around, so we have Flux Dev artifact, the command, which currently what it does, it downloads the artifact from OCI, from the OCI registry, and compares the tar of the checksum with what's local in a directory. And it says identical or not identical. But the diff command, like for Flux diff customization, should also print the output of the diff, not just say, hey, these are not identical. It should actually tell you, like Flux diff customization, like Git diff, all the diff functions out there, they are telling you what's the actual change. And we have a pull request here where it's using Diffie, and it has the same output as Flux diff customization, which is very nice. You see in the YAMLs, though, you change replicas or you change some field or whatever, right? Which is great. But the problem while reading the code, I realized that, you know, Flux artifacts are not only about YAML. In an artifact can be anything. For example, if you use Tofu controller, the artifact are Terraform scripts. It's a Terraform modules. There are no YAMLs there. And if you try to parse YAMLs from the artifact, everything will fail. I also don't want to shell exec to the diff CLI blindly, because I think how we show the diff of YAML has a lot of value and people love it. Like everybody that used Flux diff customization had a great experience with it. So my suggestion on that pull request is, let's not assume we have YAMLs in the artifact. The user should know and specify the content type, but being opt-in. So we don't actually blindly go and, oh, this everything should be YAML. We load it up and pass it to diff. We let the user specify, say, hey, Flux diff, and I suggested the argument content type, and if you say content type YAML, then only then we load the YAML and we show the diff. But what should we do when it's Terraform or it's something else? Do you think it's okay to shell exec? Like, I think Git does that, right? Git shell execs to diff, the diff command, and you can replace the diff with some other diffing tool if you have. And it has environment variables where you can override the diff. It's a lot of work, right? And it implies shell exec with which Flux does not do. We don't shell exec to anything. This would be the first
But that's
time
only
we
for the
introduce
CLI,
that.
right?
Yeah. Nevertheless,
Can't we
it's,
detect the extension of the files to show the diff?
no.
Wait,
No,
why
because
is it file type dependent? It's just a plain text diff, right?
what?
It's just a plain text diff. Why is it file type dependent? Is it because for YAML we show the value change differently?
Wait,
And we
wait. So
cannot
for
do that
YAML
for-
is not a plain text diff. For YAML, we have semantic diffing. Have you seen
Mhm.
how Flux diff
No,
customization
That's
looks
what
like?
I'm asking. Why can't we do a plain text for anything else that's not YAML or JSON?
With what? Diffie does not. Diffie is made for YAML.
Go diff, there are so like general diff. There is a Go diff package I see. Just a plain text
Is
diff.
Yeah, so what
Is
are
a-
thinking? Like detect the extension, like the file type, and for YAML use what we have, and for everything else that's not YAML, use something like a Go package for plain text diffing.
I don't know if there is a Go package that does
I've seen,
coloring and
like,
everything.
it sounds no, it may not be colored, fine, or the color can be just plus and minus. It sounds really simple. Just plain text, agnostic of what content it has.
Well, I think there is a specialized diff for Terraform which does semantic diffing in the same way that YAML does and looks really good.
It can be open to add more in the future if anybody wants to configure. But by default, you can have plain text.
But what's the issue with detecting the extension of the file? Because the artifact is like a single layer, right? Of the OCI artifact image, and then there's a file system, and then we walk this file system, I guess.
Oh no, we can look at the extension.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's we could scan all the files on our own, build an index with all the YAML files, send all the YAML files to the YAML loader. There is a different package that loads or docks, whatever, and then that one is passing to diff.
And then for unknown
But you
formats, we fall back to.
You can't interpolate them, right?
What do you mean?
Well, you have a file structure, right? You have the YAML file a.yaml, b.terraform, c.script, x.yaml, right? How Diffie works, you collect all the YAMLs everywhere, you pass it to Diffie, and Diffie writes the output of all the YAMLs. You'll have AX and then BC. It's not in the order that you usually see the files in the file system. We could maybe do one by one. So run Diffie for every single YAML file. Run Diffie for one YAML file, then the generic one for whatever file is next, and so on.
But doesn't the diff tools like detect things like, oh, this file actually was just renamed to this one? Like in GitHub, like when you rename a file, like let's say you delete, you literally just rename a file, right? Like GitHub's detects that as a, okay, this is just a file renaming and not like a deletion of this file and the creation of this other file with a different name. It just like detects as a rename. Does our tool have something like that? The
No, of course
semantic
not.
YAML diff? No?
Oh, it's not about how would you know that? You need a Git database, right? There is no such thing in the artifact. How would you know a file was renamed if you don't have the whole gigabytes of Git data, Git history?
Good point.
No, that's completely out of scope. No, we are not talking about that. No, we can't do
Okay.
that. No. This is not Git. I mean, people should use Git diff if they do that, but that's not OC artifacts. OC artifacts have no, are not a Git repo. They don't have the Git metadata, history, everything. So it's not about renaming. It's about displaying the diff in the alphabetic order.
Yeah, well, in that
Yeah,
case,
anyway.
like file per file, right? Like diff each file.
Yeah, and it's very expensive compared to what we do now, load everything in a single
YAML.
doc, in a single doc, and we pass that to Diffie, right?
Do we
Keep in
sort
mind that
the
no, we don't. So the sorting is done by the YAML loader. Right? So it's also a problem if like people use Flux push artifact for a whole repo which has tens of thousands of files.
True.
That can be really problematic if we iterate over them, we parse them, we load each one in memory, we print the diff. So yeah, it's also, we need to think what happens at scale, even if it's the CLI, right? We shouldn't be using 4 gigabytes of memory to load 20,000 YAMLs, right? The current logic is optimized for that.
I see.
Anyway, I wanted just to bring to attention that pull request that it would be good to get it in, even if we just display YAML, but if we have this content type or whatever flag, we have the flexibility to, you know, maybe specify a different diffing tool or some other diff mechanism. But without a flag for that, we are locked into YAML, and I think that's bad. because yeah, as I said, artifacts are more than just YAMLs.
Well, for maybe a
I'll-
first iteration, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's nothing. So you're saying,
I was just thinking that maybe for the first version, we can use this CLI flag option where like with it, we can basically just opt like for the current behavior of YAML semantic diffing. And the other option would be the shell exec thing for a diff tool. Like this, is that super complex to implement?
That's already implemented. Have you looked at the pull request?
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm
Well,
talking about. Like we
well, that sounds
in the
good to
pull
me.
request, the default is exec to diff, the diffing tool which compares to directories like Git, whatever, right? And you pass a flag where you say, hey, I want semantic diffing, and type is YAML, and then we show that nice output, right? But it's an or that or the other. It's not a mix of the two. Anyway, we can stop commenting on that. I just wanted to bring this pull request up to your attention. We can move forward. Tamo?
Hey,
Hey.
cool. Had a couple things. I was just curious, just wanted to make sure I was ahead of the next release blog post. If there's anything that we can start gathering info, people can start contributing when again is the date.
We don't know anything yet. So we are waiting for Kubernetes 131 release, which
Yeah.
is scheduled end of next week.
Oh, okay. So
After Kubernetes release, we have to wait for control runtime release because there are breaking changes. Hopefully they will do it the week after. So end of August, we'll know what will go into the next release. And that's when we can start planning the blog post.
okay, sounds good.
So we can talk from now in 2 weeks about we need to create that prep issue where we collect all the changes that we want to ship. We need to add there, and we'll create that a list, and that will be that should be the base of the blog post, like we did the last time. We know the changes that go in, then we need to think how to talk about them.
Yep. Okay, I'll check in, and yeah, if you have any links already where you're starting to jot down thoughts or anything like that, then just share. Okay.
Yeah.
The next thing was KubeCon Salt Lake City. The travel scholarship still is open until September 1st. So if anybody is thinking about going and needs funding help, the link is still here. In terms of organization, just wanted to do a shout out. Thanks to Kingdon for adding me to the right alias. So now hopefully I'll be on all the communications. So we can prep for our booth and keynote and all the activities that we usually do at KubeCons. Actually, I was forgetting, did they announce is London the next EU location? Is that correct? Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Sorry, I should say EU, European location. And then the last thing was just a random thing. I organized DevRelCon in 2024. Sorry, I organized DevRelCon, a conference, which for 2024 was in Brooklyn, and randomly a talk that was on a completely, I'm blanking even right now. I think it was just, how to get into DevRel and examples of things, of ways you can contribute, and Flux was mentioned and on the slide. So I tried to get a photo as quickly as I could and just got a little, put a little out there. But I'll actually follow up because I'm just kind of curious about that speaker and why Flux was an example. But
Nice.
yeah, it was really nice. And that's reminding me, kind of just on a side topic, is there anyone, I haven't been on top of this, but does anybody own the process of if someone adds themselves as a Flux user on the list? I know Daniel used to like see if they could collect logos and have them be added to the main website. Is anybody doing that now? Because if not, I can try to put some eyeballs on that, because if there's new users, but we haven't put them on the front page and gotten their okay for logos, it'd probably be good to refresh some logos.
So all the pull requests with new adopters have the adopters label. I make sure I always label them like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can maybe after next release, we can go over the last months of merged pull requests which have these adopters label and pick some of them.
Okay, I can look at that then and just be on top of it. I also
I'll
wanted to,
give the link. 1 second. I can give you the link in chat, which is for that label. You can see them. Merge pull requests.
yeah. I just realized if obviously if they've gotten approval to put their logo on the adopters page, then maybe
Yeah.
we don't even need a process to ask for permission to
don't.
put their logo on the front page.
No, we don't.
Yeah, okay. I'll take a look at that and just make sure that some fresh logos are there.
One thing, so Sanskar was asking about Kubernetes India, KubeCon India.
Yeah.
So this is, I think, the first KubeCon ever in India, and
Yeah.
um,
Sunny? I will not.
I don't go to any conferences.
Sunny has to go to KubeCon India and stay at the booth 24/7, and Sanskar can do all the talks.
Yeah, Sanskar can do all the dancing and the talks. So is there another meeting where Sanskar joins, or how are you guys keeping in touch? Because if Sanskar plans to be there, then that would be great.
Slack. I'm talking
Okay.
with him on Slack.
What is Sanskar's current commitment to the project?
He does Flagger maintenance.
Okay, so still
So yes, so he asked me if it would be okay to do the maintainers talk track about Flagger, and of course it is. It's a Flux project. We should have done that in the past, but we didn't.
Yeah.
I think I did it once, 4 years ago. So yeah, if he gets signed up and if he goes there and does the maintainers track, we should advertise it like we do for KubeCon, yes, in the same way. So
is there
yeah,
anyone
that's-
else here who is at least aspiring or thinks it would be fun to go there, so that we know who might be having it on their radar?
I want to go
Sunny
to
doesn't
KubeCon
want to
India,
go.
but not this year.
Okay, so you would want to go to Cube. Are they planning to have future KubeCon Indias? Oh, so I noticed the talk submission is August 25th, so it's still open. Okay. All right.
Yeah, and the maintainers track it's after, right? So it's further on the deadline.
Well, if Sankar is interested in submitting a regular talk, I'll collaborate and I'll see if any Flux users in India are thinking about it. Not a lot of time,
Yeah.
but it wasn't on my radar, I'll be honest. But
Me neither. He messaged me Friday.
I see.
And I was, I've seen something on Twitter and then I forgot about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if this one is successful and it will be for sure. It was KDC India, and it was really good.
Yeah.
They will do it every year, like the US and EU one, right? There is
Stefan, you
also
don't.
one in Asia, Hong Kong, I think,
Yeah.
or yes, somewhere
Yeah.
in China, and they do it every year as well. So yeah, why
And
not?
Stefan, you don't want to go to India?
No money for travel this year, no.
Well, you would apply for
I'm,
travel. You don't want to apply for travel.
No.
People would love to see you. Back in my Cloud Foundry days, there was I wasn't involved in that one, but there was a tour of, hitting some spots to give talks in India. And one of our dev advocates was saying, he was like, I just realized I live the best life ever. Every place we went to, all the food was amazing and it was so fun. So it might be cool.
Not this year.
Yeah, it's coming up real quick. Okay, cool. Thanks for the reminder. I'll see if there's anything it can do in just 2 weeks.
Oh, thank you.
Cool. Thanks,
Okay.
everybody.
If we have a few more minutes, do we have?
Oh, it's up to you guys.
Yeah.
The GCP end-to-end test issue. Oh, before that, this week we enabled AWS integration tests, and they are running every day. I have not seen any failures, and I checked the AWS account. Everything looks fine. There's no state resources costs are going up. As
And I
expected.
received no more spam
emails?
emails about stuck
Okay.
EKS clusters. So the purger thing,
AWS new results in that. That means.
yeah, does it in the right order, I'm guessing, or something like that, and it doesn't trigger those annoying alerts. So yeah, that's awesome. Awesome work, Stanley, there.
So we saw GCP end-to-end tests failing it's been failing for almost 2 months. Not all the time, sometimes. And I look for those errors. I can paste the link. There's a discussion in upstream GCP Terraform provider where this issue has been bugging users since January, I think. And now it's becoming more and more annoying. And the solution they added was a 10-second sleep after provisioning a service account. They say it's eventual consistency in Google Cloud API, and they cannot just pull and check. I don't understand why, but their solution was to add a 10-second sleep and hope it will work. So far, it didn't work. And end of this month, they will have a big major release of the provider. We can see that helps.
Do we have that 10-second sleep as well?
No, it's in their provider, in their code.
Oh, it's in their provider. It's famous. Okay. Wasn't supposed Google API is so much better than AWS. Looks worse.
If you look into the discussion, people talk about their promise of eventual consistency. And that's causing the issue.
Okay.
So today that test passed because there was
Yeah,
no
I've seen it.
consistency issue.
I've seen it. It doesn't always fail. So it's definitely a race condition somewhere and really annoying.
So Sunny, do you run those tests manually or
No, it's in
like
our
how
CI.
there is a could you point me to that link? So does that run all the cloud provider specific tests?
Only for the ones we have account. So for GCP, we have account from CNCF.
Mhm.
So we can run that. I can paste the link to
Mhm.
a successful run. At the same time, you can maybe share some updates.
Yeah, I'm a little so I've had some commitments on the Azure side because of which I'm a little behind, but thank you so much for like reviewing the PRs. I have taken a look at your comments. I think the big refactoring is around the Git client for the main package repo. I'm still kind of, I haven't got a chance to review the code after that to make those changes. I'm planning to, it's actually going to be hard for the next 2 weeks as well. I probably will be able to get to it after that. But I think the main thing is currently the auth options are which has the bearer token, which is eventually passed to the transport auth in the Git client, right? So we want to keep that interface the same, but kind of expand the client interface to have like a provider string, and somewhere in the Go Git client, use that provider to get the cloud provider specific auth and populate the bearer token in the Git auth options so that then we can pass it to the transport auth. That is the thinking. I have to make those changes and validate. For the integration tests, I think the main comment was around having like a single Terraform provider, right? I remember having tried that in the beginning, but I was hitting some error while using the provider in the root repository. It might have to do something with the way I had written the test infra provider. I'm going to give that another shot and check that goes through. But yeah. I'm on call here on the Azure side, so it's been a little busy. Plus, I'll be on vacation end of the month as well. So, yeah, planning around that. But yeah, I'll get to this.
Regarding the testing, if there is a use case for provisioning only Git related infrastructure, we can add some variable that Terraform
Yeah.
can consume and decide that we don't need OCI registry. So don't create OCI registry, just the cluster and Azure DevOps repository. We can do that if there is a need for that.
Yeah, I think the way the test was written, we were also pushing not just the OCI images, but also the app image, which is used for running the test. That is also getting uploaded to the registry, because of which I had to preserve all the registry code. But originally, I was thinking that I'll just have the Azure DevOps repository and the cluster, and that would be enough. But I think because it's pushing that app image, and that app image is needed to run the test, because of that, I had to kind of,
So that's not an option. Okay. Keep the registry.
Yeah, I'll keep it. I think I'll try to have a single one, but kind of like the creation of the Azure DevOps registry only happens for the Git test, so that OCI thing doesn't need to always have that requirement. Yeah, I remember doing that originally, and then I had hit some Terraform related issue that some root provider can only exist somewhere, something like that. I've forgotten what exact error it was, but I'll give it another shot.
If that happens, you can comment and we can discuss how to resolve that. I have pasted a link to the passing GCP test run if you want to see.
Yeah, I'll take a look. Thank you. Yeah.
Anything else?
We've covered everything and we're over time.
Yep.
King, didn't you want to stop the recording?
Sure, just a second.